learned through COVID-19 that if you really wanted to succeed at something and focused 100% of your energy on it, you will succeed. I learned that even though the whole world was falling apart and everybody was emotional and things looked really bleak for the world, that I needed to succeed at what I did to be able to not only look after those around me, but also keep myself together. This took a lot of energy in terms of keeping physically fit, not eating too much homemade bread, keeping office hours, being disciplined, but also making sure that I was relaxed and being able to survive living and working physically and psychologically and mentally with my husband all at the same time. So I would say that the lesson that I learned through COVID, to keep your focus no matter what happened and drive through any perceived threats that you may come across, because at the end of it all, everything equalizes eventually. That's what I learned through COVID. Thank you.
I just want to reiterate the purpose of your speech from your evaluation form. The purpose of your speech was to clearly define how Toastmasters envisions mentoring. And the purpose of your speech was also for you to share some aspect and experience as a protege. And the evaluation form specifically asks you not to report on the contents of the introduction to Toastmasters project. I listened throughout your speech and I'm going to give quick feedback, but I've noticed that throughout your speech, you were focused too much on the contents of the speech. And if you go to the introduction to mentoring project, the pathway, it speaks about the role of a Toastmasters mentor. It talks about the traits of a successful mentor. It defines what a mentor is and what a protege is. It also talks about the difference between mentoring and coaching, which were all elements that you touched on in your speech. So some of the notes I made was about mentors sharing experiences, mentors giving feedback, being prepared, being present for meeting, and a protege learning how to be more familiar with Toastmasters, getting guidance in Toastmasters, being open-minded, asking questions, being engaged, and being aware of self on how you're engaging. So I thought in the beginning of your speech, this was part of your introduction, and I was waiting for the part where you actually share an aspect of your journey in Toastmasters as a protege. And you only got to this stage when you are touching on your experience as a protege at Toastmasters, when you alluded to your mentors being Tando and Enius, when the red card came up. So I found that you spent too much time of your speech and your time of your speech focusing on the project itself, but not necessarily as the protege and your experience as what the evaluation form asked you as your experience as a protege in Toastmasters. So you spoke about Enius and Tando, just touched on them, but you didn't necessarily spoke about how they specifically guided your journey in Toastmasters. And you're actually a competent communicator. So how did they contribute you to be a competent communicator? And you're also a very experienced speaker and you're a very great speaker. So also how they contributed in you being such an amazing speaker that you are. And you also thanked your mentors during that stage. And you also alluded to that you also mentored two other Toastmasters members. So as part of my feedback or how to improve, you're a very experienced speaker. So you also know that it's important for you to meet the purpose of your speech. And like what I need to do right now is that you learn that you need to speak within the time that is allocated in your speech. And also as an experienced speaker, you know that you need to wrap up within 30 seconds when the red card is up. So overall, it was a good speech, but I found that again, you focused too much on the content of the project, which was not required from you, and you spend less time sharing about your experience on Toastmasters. And we have new members here in the club, and they could have learned something or two from your speech tonight. And I think that tonight was a bit of a missed opportunity. But overall, great speaker, always like hearing from you, but something to think about going forward on your next projects. Thank you very much.
evening, fellow Toastmasters and guests. So my first speech happens to be on the first day of our hybrid meeting. Isn't that fortuitous? Fellow Toastmasters and guests. Can you aspire to be what you've never seen? I'm sure we're all very familiar with the question. So, what do you want to become when you grow up? As if it has an end. It's as if you become a doctor and that's it for the rest of your life, or a teacher and that's it. Well, personally, I said I wanted to become a doctor. You may be wondering why. I'll answer that shortly, but first, allow me to introduce myself. I'm Kaluba Chikonde. I was born and raised in Lusaka, Zambia. I'm the eldest out of 3 beautiful girls. I speak 2 Zambian languages, Bemba and Nyanja. So shout out to any Zambians on the school. I'm hoping they are Zambian. 10 years ago, at the age of 16, I relocated to South Africa with my family, where I completed my high school and in Pretoria at St. Mary's DSG. I then proceeded to pursue my undergraduate studies in Cape Town at the University of Cape Town. However, this came right after my dreams to study medicine was shattered. Completely shattered by the rejection from 2 universities that told me that I couldn't study medicine because I was an international student and I had a medical school in my country. Now, for someone who dedicated her whole life to becoming a doctor, for someone who dedicated her whole primary school and high school career to getting straight A's so that she could become a doctor, it felt like my world had come to an end. It felt like my dreams were completely shattered. But were these really my dreams? So growing up in an African household, I can only speak from my experience. I was only exposed to the big 5 occupations. If you're not a doctor, an accountant, an engineer, a lawyer, or a teacher, you're basically a failure. Or not a failure, I'm just kidding, but you get the point. I was only exposed to those type of occupations, and so were my parents and their grandparents. So I can't blame anyone. So 5-year-old Kaluba thought that she only had 5 options. But did she really only have 5 options? Or were her options limited by the exposure to role models in different occupations? So rejection forced me to ask myself the hard questions. Who is Kaluba? What does she like? What is she passionate about? What is she curious about? And so I discovered that I actually love math. At the time, actuarial science was a very hot degree and everyone said, do actuarial science if you want to make money. So I thought to myself, I love math and I can make money from it. So let me pursue a degree in actuarial science. And so I applied for actuarial science at the University of Cape Town. That's my first choice. My second choice, analytics. It involved math and statistics. So unfortunately, I didn't get into actuarial science, but I got into my second choice. And I was told that I can still pursue a degree in actuarial science if I pass certain courses in my first year. But guess what? For the first time ever in my life, I failed a course. And this course was meant to get me into actuarial science. At this point, I felt like a failure. I thought, this can't be happening to me again. Is this really my dream? Is this really meant to be happening to me? So I was forced to stay in analytics. In second year, I had my registration form. Fortunately, I passed my computer science course, my first course that I had to repeat in the second semester. So in second year, when I went to register with my registration form, I approached my student advisor and then they told me that Kaluba, you have the wrong form. I couldn't understand what he meant. He said, no, Kaluba, the curriculum has changed. We have computer science into the curriculum. Computer science? Now, for someone who only got her first laptop in grade 11, for someone who knew nothing about software and IT, this really was nerve-wracking. Am I going to fail again? Am I even ready for this? Am I smart enough for this? Most of the people in computer science and IT always tend to be, the only people I know are, geeks at Facebook and Google. Is this really for me? Fortunately, I passed that course. And in third year, they introduced more computer science courses. By the time I graduated, I was in love with coding. I was just so fascinated by the idea of solving real world problems and real business problems through giving a computer instructions. I also realized that I love teaching. So I started to take up some tutoring jobs in varsity, and this is where I discovered my love for public speaking. So I had two passions. I had the passion to teach and the passion to code. But I was also passionate about representation, inspiring more women in STEM. Because from my experience, I wasn't surrounded by many women in my field, in my lectures and in the conferences that I attended. And so I had the passion to inspire more women in STEM. And this is what led me to co-founding Coding for Pilots, a project that I started to introduce people with no prior coding experience to learn computer science, to learn programming in Python. And so during COVID, during the lockdown, for 2 months, I taught Python programming. Now, this I found so fulfilling, making a difference, helping people who have never been exposed to this thing called computer science, exposing them to that. They're helping them diversify their skills. And this is what led me to where I am today. Today, I'm a data engineer at Terraform, and I'm a proud member of Mariswe Toastmasters. I want to use this platform to make a difference, to inspire other women or other people to inspire others, so that they too can aspire to inspire. Thank you.